This week we discuss analog and virtual analog. Welcome. Hey everybody. Recently I had read an article that Roland was releasing a series of products that recalled synths of their past. One of the features was virtual analog modeling. This seemed like it was met with instant rejection. Like they didn't want anything to do with it because of that. Prior to that, Yamaha had released the Reface series of synthesizers. And upon release, it sounds like they're being well received. But before they were released, there was a lot of negativity towards the line for several reasons. One of which is the CS model featured virtual analog technology. Mark Doty, via his Automatic Gainsay page, had posted a status stating that analog technology has made a strong comeback since 2002 and that 2015 has seen a banner year for analog synths. He concluded his post with the statement, "Friends don't let friends buy virtual analog in 2015. This raised a couple of questions for me. Is analog a valid sound source? If not, then why are manufacturers still producing and marketing it? Now, I cannot speak about either Roland's Boutique line or the Yamaha's Reface line, as I've not had a chance to demo either one. So I'll deal with the current crops of analog modeling and analog synths as I own them. My first action on researching the topic saw me take to Facebook groups, asking the question, what are your thoughts on analog or virtual analog, and why? I thought for sure I'd be opening a Pandora's box, getting responses that would have the analog fanboys raging about the virtues of analog and how virtual analog was garbage. Instead, I was rather surprised by the responses. Okay, now I am not going to state one way or the other which is better. I will be trying to give an equal and as unbiased as possible platform for both types of synthesis. I had posted my question to about 4 or 5 different groups on Facebook. The hard, the soft, and the modular, synthesizers, etc., iPad musicians, and a couple of others. I had originally excluded soft synths because the source of my idea came from hardware utilizing virtual technology. But then I realized the majority of the synths that I use for live performance were soft synths. Basically, the responses that were posted mainly fell into 3 categories: sound, ease of use, and expense. Can virtual analog make waveforms that mimic an analog waveform? Sure they can, but it's analog's imperfections that give the sound its character, its soul, if you will. Virtual analog is getting better about recreating these imperfections, but we're still talking digital. Is that necessarily a bad mark against virtual analog? Well, the thing about virtual analog is that you could do things with that a waveform that analog just can't do. One of the comments that I read dealt with the quality of a sound, and that how you can't really say that this recorded fart has better quality than that recorded fart unless you want to compare the precision of the reproduction of the recordings. So in the spirit of this, I'll do a quick synth demo, one being analog, one being virtual analog. Well, that stinks. Moving on. So in the recording process, can one actually tell the difference between analog and virtual analog in a mix? My guess is that unless you have a trained ear and have been working with a type of sound exclusively, the answer is probably no. As a solo instrument, you could hear, even feel the difference. Some of the other comments that I saw pertain to analog being easier to use because of the physical controls. I mean, how nice is it that you can reach up and grab a filter cutoff knob and crank it down in real time? It's visceral, it's tangible, it's satisfying. In the way of hardware modeling synths, this too is possible, but because we're interfacing with the digital world, there will be some incremental quantization, because there really isn't an in-between with ones and zeros. That's not to say the resolution sucks, it's become very good. And while working with a digital audio workstation, you're most likely making parameter adjustments with a mouse. In live performance, you're using a MIDI controller with the controls mapped to the needed parameters. It should be noted that analog suffers from tuning instability, particularly vintage gear. It's definitely become better as manufacturers have access to better components, but it still exists. Virtual analog doesn't suffer from this unless you want it to, as there have been drift controls added to simulate oscillator drifting out of tune. We live in an age where price is not really an obstacle for musicians to have access to a synthesizer, no matter the choice. Mark Doty mentioned in his post that you have a wide variety of analog synthesizers at a wide variety of prices, and he's right. Conversely, with the advent of devices like the iPad and the processing power that most of today's laptops possess, software synths seem to be priced ranging from a cup of crappy vending machine coffee to a bottle of Cristal. I think I have the majority of the classic analog and frequency modulator synths in app form, spending about the same amount I did on my microbrew. I've used them live and in recordings, which leads me to my next question. Can they coexist? I believe they can. One of the commentators posted a video of Gary Newman giving a tour of his live synth rig. He displayed mostly digital synths. Ultimately, he uses these synths because of ease of use and less of a possibility of breakdown while on tour. It should be worth mentioning that due to today's technology, musicians new to the world of synthesizers have a chance to use virtual analog and software synthesizers as a learning tool. Not only to learn how to create sounds, but also to learn the history of where synthesis came from, all at a reasonable price point. Some may stop there, deciding to just use the presets, but others, like myself, will make the leap into hardware analog synthesizers. Ultimately, whatever type of synth you use, be it straight up analog, frequency modulation, wavetable, granular, or virtual analog modeling, it is a tool, another color on your palette. It's no different than choosing a Les Paul or a Stratocaster. Both are guitars, both sound different, neither is a wrong choice. This topic has been a never-ending debate, so I'd imagine that I will be revisiting it more than once, especially if I'm able to do gear reviews and app reviews. So why don't you leave me some comments, thoughts, if I missed something, if you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comment section. As always, if you like the video, please subscribe, like the video, share it, and tell me what you think. Until next week, we'll see ya. Thanks for watching.